Right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the City and State New York City Power 100 webinar. This is our first virtual edition of the New York City Power 100. I think last year's edition was one of my last events in person before we all huddled away for the past year. So I thank you all for joining, for taking away your attention for just a brief moment from any New York City mayoral forums. We promise you can get right back to the mayoral forums right after this event. I do believe there are 3 tonight, plus a comptroller forum. So, there is just endless entertainment for anybody out there who cares about the mayor's race. But speaking of endless entertainment, before I get too far in, I really do want to throw it to somebody from Charter Spectrum who knows a little thing about entertainment and the news. I would like to thank our sponsor, Charter, and to throw it to Najay Roache, who is the Director of State Government Affairs for Charter Communications. Najay, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you for everyone who's joining us tonight. And you're absolutely right. I think the City and State Power 100 is the last in-person event that I remember for 2020, because of course the week right after that, we started down this journey that we've been on. So in particular, I just want to say thanks to everyone who's joining us this evening. Congratulations to all of the honorees, and especially to Charter's own Camille Joseph Goldman, our Northeast Group Vice President, for being recognized today. We just want to say, it speaks volumes to the contributions that everyone being recognized here today has made to their companies, but not just to the companies and organizations represented here, but also to the New York City community at large. This is an industry where so much of the work that keeps these organizations going, it happens under the radar, it happens behind the scenes. And so one of the reasons this list is always so acknowledged and celebrated is that it's one of the few times that we get to put the names and the faces up there for all around to see, who really keeps this train going. So I definitely want to take a moment to just acknowledge that. And also, this pandemic has really shaped and reshaped the way that we engage, not just with each other, but with our communities as companies and partners that all have a role to play here. And tonight's recognition, I think it's important to say that it means that you've not only been doing good work. Some of the folks on this list have been around, we know, for decades, but you're continuing to shine and be an example and just be a part of the connective tissue that keeps this city going. So, I know it's not supposed to be a commercial, but I just want to say it means everything to work for a company that has prioritized keeping folks connected during this time when, this conversation wouldn't even be possible if we didn't have the connectivity infrastructure that has become, really critical for all of us. We just want to keep doing what we've been doing, which is making a difference and enabling, whether it's schools, businesses, our local governments, our community partners, to be the mainstays that they have been, support those New Yorkers who need it most, and help businesses, small businesses especially, get back on their feet and thrive in whatever this new normal looks like when we come out of this phase. One of the things that I also want to highlight is that it's not just about the big businesses that we tend to see, companies like Charter. We spend a lot of money and a lot of resources to make sure that not-for-profit operators and organizations that we partner with for like our learning labs that are throughout the city. I think we've got about 40 of them across the city right now. They all serve a very important role in making sure that people like my parents and grandparents can walk into a school or a community center and get connected, get on a Zoom call and talk to their family members, our students, so that they can stay connected and do their remote learning. And it's been a journey, and I know that there's been times when it's been difficult, but we're still here. And it feels really great to be able to look back on the past year, recognize those who've been doing great work, and look forward to a future where we can do that together and still celebrate our achievements and look forward to progress. So with that, I will turn it back over to you. And again, on behalf of the Charter Government Affairs team, thank you, and congrats again to all of the honorees.
Thank you so much, Najay. Really appreciate hearing from you. I guess I should make the announcement. I'm going to be on Inside City Hall, New York 1 on Friday, talking more about this Power 100 list with Errol Lewis, one of the Power 100 winners. So I'm glad that there's continued crossover there. And of course, I'd also want to thank our other sponsor for today, the New York Building Congress. We are going to be hearing from Carlo Scissura later, but thank you to the New York Building Congress and Charter Communications for supporting this event and for supporting city and state. Now, I have a difficult job today. I am going to have to go through all 100 of the Power 100 names, but I promise we're going to keep this exciting. We're going to keep this interesting. So we're not just going to go 1 through 100. I'm going to be peppering in parts of the list throughout the event today. And we're breaking it up into different sections. You know, the young guns, the people with new jobs, the labor leaders on the list. But the first section, the one that everyone's been paying attention to, the one that everyone cares about, the top 10. So I'll start out by saying the top 10 of the New York City Power 100 for 2021. Number 1, Chuck Schumer, U.S. Senate Minority Leader. I think this is his first year as number 1. He's always top 4, top 5. But, you know, I'm sorry, did I just call him minority leader? Majority leader. That's the reason he's number 1 this year, because Chuck Schumer is officially the majority leader. He's got those 50 votes plus 1 with the vice president. So congratulations to the most powerful person in New York City politics, Chuck Schumer. Below that, we got Governor Andrew Cuomo, of course. We got New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, of course. After that, Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie. Number 4 on the list. Number 5, we have State Senate Majority Leader Andrew Stewart Cousins, the dynamic duo, what do they call themselves? The Power Twins, the Wonder Twins. That's it. The Wonder Twins, Carl Heastie, Andrew Stewart Cousins. After that on the list, the State Attorney General Letitia James. Stay tuned. We're going to hear from her very soon. Below that, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries from Brooklyn. Then we got a pair of mayoral candidates, New York City Comptroller Scott Stringer and Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. They are 2 of the leading mayoral candidates, but also they have a lot of power in their current jobs. And rounding out the top 10 is Richard Carranza, the schools chancellor for all of New York City, the largest public school system in the entire country, setting the agenda. And shout out to him. Like me, he was born and raised in Arizona, so I've got a soft spot for Richard Carranza. But with that, I just said the top 10. One of them, Letitia James, the State Attorney General, has a message for us today. She sent something in, so I'd like to throw it over to a brief message from General James.
Thank you to City and State for bringing us all together. It's great to be here among all of the New York City's best and brightest. And congratulations to today's honorees. This has been a tough year for all of us, but as everyone here knows, New Yorkers are resilient. In the midst of the worst public health crisis of our lifetimes, during a year of racial unrest, economic distress, and political duress, one thing is clear. When New Yorkers come together in a spirit of equal opportunity, shared responsibility, and community, there is no obstacle or challenge we cannot overcome. And that's exactly what we've seen over the past year. We've seen people looking out for their neighbors and their communities during this pandemic in inspirational ways. There are still many challenges ahead, but I am confident and optimistic that we can make progress as long as we work together for the common good. As we think about the future of our city, we must focus on protecting our most vulnerable, while not losing sight of the larger issues we were facing before the pandemic sidelined our progress. Whether it's making sure all New Yorkers can access the vaccine, ensuring tenants can remain in their homes, supporting small businesses, or charting a course to safeguard our planet for future generations and keeping our city safe, this is the work we must be committed to together. First, it is vital that New York does everything in its power to ensure marginalized communities are able to access the vaccine and eliminate any potential barriers to vaccinating these communities. Closing the racial gap in vaccination requires both education and awareness, as well as efforts to ensure access. We know that marginalized communities, especially Black and Brown communities, have a justifiable skepticism of healthcare providers and institutions due to generations of discriminatory treatment and experimentation. And as leaders in this city, we must all reach out to our communities and networks and let them know that this vaccine is both safe and effective. It's not just about protecting ourselves, but about doing our part to protect our loved ones and our fellow community members. We must also address the other barriers that are hampering vaccine equity, including access to appointments and access to health care, especially now when so many have become unemployed and have lost their insurance. It's critical that New Yorkers are able to receive both doses of the vaccine in an easy and convenient way, and that there are no cost or insurance barriers for people to be vaccinated. I am working to tackle these issues as a co-chair of the New York State Vaccine Equity Task Force, and by working with Congress to ensure that fees for the vaccine are not passed along to Medicaid and or Medicare beneficiaries or the uninsured. Vaccine equity and access is one of my top priorities as we enter the new year and will be a key factor in New York's recovery. Another key factor will be addressing the housing crisis and making sure New Yorkers can stay in their homes. The eviction moratorium through May 2021 is critical given the financial instability so many are facing at this time. My office has issued guidance to law enforcement across the state regarding the eviction process during COVID-19 to make sure they are aware of the law and so no tenants are evicted unlawfully. And we have provided grants and support to legal service providers and housing groups to ensure that all New Yorkers can stay in their homes during this time. There are a multitude of critical short-term challenges that we must face in the coming months, yet we cannot let these challenges distract us from continuing to make progress on the large-scale issues our city faced before the pandemic. One of those issues remains climate change. Recently, Mayor de Blasio and other trustees voted to divest the New York City pension fund from fossil fuel companies. This is a major step towards moving away from a fossil fuel economy and embracing the urgent changes that must be made to ensure New York City remains livable and viable for generations to come. We must continue to make strides to protect our future and our workers' future. This decision has been long in the making. I first led the charge to divest from fossil fuels when I served as public advocate back in 2017, because there is nothing prudent about investing in companies that cause so much harm to our people and our planet. I am proud to see this finally become reality and applaud the leadership of Mayor de Blasio for making this happen. The future of the city depends on our ability to react and respond to both the short-term and long-term challenges we face. I believe that with strong leaders and a commitment to action, New York City will not only endure, but emerge from this pandemic with a clearer sense of our values and a vision for how to continue forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you to the Attorney General for that message. One of the fascinating parts about politics, as I'm sure everybody watching this knows, is watching certain elected officials, certain people move up through the ranks and move around and get new roles. Letitia James is certainly one of those. You know, when I started covering politics, she was just a city council member and then became public advocate, a leading mayoral candidate for a little while, and now Attorney General, one of the most powerful offices in the state and one of the most powerful AG offices in the country. So for our next section of the Power 100 winners, we're honoring the people that had a big jump up this year, people that moved much higher in the list for one reason or another. That's Mitchell Katz, the Health and Hospitals CEO, who of course gained a lot of influence thanks to the COVID pandemic. Manhattan District Attorney Cy Vance, Greg Meeks, Congressman and the new chairman of the House Foreign Relations Committee, Carolyn Maloney, Congresswoman and the new chairwoman of the House Oversight Committee, Kyle Bragg, 32BJ, definitely going to have a big influence in elections this year. The Bolton St. John's partners, Emily Giske, Michael Keogh, and Juanita Scarlett, Kathy Wild from the Partnership in New York City, Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez, Ritchie Torres, newly minted congressman from the city council. We'll be hearing from him later. Rodneyce Bichotte, newly elected Kings County Democratic Party leader. Soshi Nemeka of WFP, the Working Families Party, going to have some big influence in the elections this year for sure. Bradley Tusk and Chris Coffey from Tusk Strategies, big time consultants, of course, working on frankly, the highest profile mayoral campaign this year. Andrew Yang, Keith Wright, the Manhattan Democratic Party chairman and a government relations director at Davidoff, Hutcher and Citrone, and Marissa Lago of the City Department of City Planning and the City Planning Commission. planning everywhere in the city. She runs it. That is our list of the big jumps in this year's Power 100 list. And somebody who knows a little bit about big jumps, I have seen him during the West Indian Day Parade in Brooklyn every Labor Day, jumping up and down. I'm talking, of course, about our New York City public advocate, Jumaane Williams. And I'd like to throw it to him for our keynote of the night.
Peace and blessings, Jeff. Love and light to you and everybody who's here. I heard you say that Tish James was just a council member. I got to say that's definitely not just around being a council member. But thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm very happy to be here. Even happier that it appears 21 people were busy. So I'm able to fill in for those folks who weren't make it when you got to my name on the list. But I will try to do my best. I'm sorry, as most folks are, that we cannot gather in person as we usually do in the years past. Speaking for myself and more for my communication staff, there are significantly less hors d'oeuvres at this version of the Power 100. But as always, the list is full of incredible people, many of whom I've been proud to work with over the years. And it's great to see their work recognized. It's a shame, though, because if it was the Power 200, we could have had room for every mayoral candidate. And we could have possibly used ranked choice voting and figured a lot of stuff out. The truth is, I think all of us, hate to love these lists. And we want to act as if it's of not as much a consequence sometimes. But the truth is, I think, as much as you don't want to, it's always nice to see your name on the list. And so I know folks have mastered that, and it is good to just have yourself recognized. Seriously, I'm honored that after a year of my work of my office, in which it seems like everything in our lives has fundamentally shifted, a massive world history altering year. I moved up 2 slots, so excited about that. It does feel great to be recognized. But I got to apologize to Congressman Nadler, chair of the Judiciary Committee, who, for reasons I can't fully explain, came a slot behind me. I'd recommend that if he had impeached the president a 3rd time, he might have had some better luck. So to the chair, you got to keep pushing. But my job as public advocate is to hold the powerful people to account on behalf of residents of New York City. So it's pretty convenient that 100 of the most powerful folks are gathered here together. So thanks for that. One of the most important parts of my role, I believe, is speaking truth to power. It's not one that is enshrined in the Constitution of the charter of the city, but the bully pulpit, I think, is important. And the truth is, our city is really in crisis. I don't think that can be overstated. I was going to say a moment of crisis, but it's substantiated past the momentary. A year ago, I spoke to many of you at this event, and we were in crisis then. We were all just more comfortable, a little less conscious of them. And when they read into the open, exposed and exacerbated by the pandemic, the truth is that we should not have been surprised. Truth is that reasons for New York being the epicenter of the pandemic for months are about more than density. They're also about delay in our response and disparity in our systems. The truth is, a nationwide movement around racial justice, policing injustice, gun violence is one New York should have led on. Over years, we've had many, many instances of injustice that brought people into the streets. I was there, I saw some of you there with us, but our leaders have never seized on that moment to create the transformational change. It seems more that we've often waited for the collective amnesia that occurs to move on to the next. And the truth is that we all bear some responsibility for those underlying inequities that have fueled these crises on city, state, and federal level. And the truth is that, and I've said this before, it's me saying it, so I don't want us to get in trouble. But through this last year, I believe we had the wrong executives on the city, state, and federal level to meet the crisis we're in. But the truth is that we in the Zoom, those of us in elected office or otherwise in positions of power, we have incredible opportunity to create change with the people who we represent or serve, who aren't on a list, but are in the streets. And we have an obligation to do it. An elected office or outside of it, whether we have power from our positions or from our profits, we need to be civically minded to lift up New York. It's an election year. It's an opportunity to select new leadership that represents and responds to the needs of our communities. At a time when people are seeing the positive role that government can play and the harsh, dire consequences when it doesn't. This is a chance for us to elect government that truly does good in people's lives. Not just bring us back to normal, but to move us forward past what we consider normal, because normal never worked for the vast amount of New Yorkers. We have to be clear that for as much as we discussed how things like rezoning and projects that gave billions of dollars in tax subsidies was supposed to improve the lives of New Yorkers, it improved a very small amount and left so many New Yorkers behind. We need leaders with a vision of what New York can be and the ability to get it done throughout the council and in the mayor's office and beyond. That's why today, after great consideration and consultation with my family, I'm proud to break news that tonight I can finally announce my candidacy for the top 20 on next year's Power 100 list. Of course, power doesn't only come from holding office or from city and state. It comes from the people of our city and state. Right now, it comes from the essential workers who have risked their own health and well-being this past year for all of our own, our healthcare workers, our grocery and delivery workers, our teachers, everyone who has been on the front lines, except when it was time to receive things like vaccines and resources that they need and were disparately impacted by. We owe our lives and our livelihoods to them. And at the very least, we owe them some relief. For each of us on this list, our power also comes from our teams, supporting, working alongside of us for shared causes, engaging the community, drafting legislation, writing remarks for virtual receptions. If we're powerful, it's because of all of them. Our team, our voters, our clients, our constituents. New York's problems are still here. The truth is that they will be here after June. They will be after January. But I'm thankful so are New York's people. And we should recognize with humility that we need to use our own power, whether it's the power to directly move the levers or the power of influence on the behalf of the people. Because I continue to believe that no matter how powerful someone is or thinks they are, they can only accomplish great things with a movement of people uniting behind what we all believe. It can't just be for power's sake. We have to use our own influence to empower the people that we are serving. Tonight, let's celebrate the accomplishments that put us all on this year's list. But let's make sure we look ahead to what we can do to truly earn a place on next year's list and what we can truly do to get past where New York is right now, together, collectively, doing our civic duties. I'm out of time now, so I'm going to turn it back to Jeff for what I know secretly is the true purpose of this evening. I'm sure probably another mayoral forum. So thank you so much, everybody. Peace and blessings again to you all. Love and light, and I know we have work to do. Peace.
Every event is secretly a mayoral forum, but oh my goodness, you gave me a heart attack, Jumaane. About to make an announcement, and then my little reporter heart, it was beating fast. I will give an exclusive to all of our listeners today, all of our viewers. Look out for this year's New York City Power couples coming out in City and State next week. Jumaane may be on it, and I might have heard his better half cheering in the background there from that. So you will be on another power list this week, and it's top 20. Congratulations! So
all right. Oh, came true already. Peace and blessings.
Thank you so much for the remarks. I got to keep my way working down this Power 100 list. This section is those that are new to the Power 100 list this year. Honestly, I'm embarrassed by some of these. These are people that are super powerful. And I'm like, how are they not on the list last year? I guess the answer is that New York City has more than 100 politically powerful people. So this is a reminder to all of you that didn't make the list this year. Just listen to these names and remember that you know, there's a lot of powerful people that are sometimes left off. But hey, it's their year. So I'm talking Congresswoman Grace Meng, Congresswoman Yvette Clark. We'll be back in a second with that. Bronx District Attorney Darcel Clarke, Staten Island District Attorney Michael McMahon, the Reverend Al Sharpton of the National Action Network on the list this year, Andrew Riggi of the Hospitality Alliance, I think is literally running a mayoral forum as we speak, I think on a separate Zoom. Maybe some of you are doubling up. Michael Dowling from Northwell Health, big year for him, obviously. All the New York City Comptroller candidates, Brian Benjamin, Michelle Caruso Cabrera, Zach Iskel, Brad Lander, Kevin Parker, and David Weprin. All of them are on the list. Daniel Nigro, the FDNY commissioner, Susan Lerner from Common Cause and one of the loudest voices on ranked choice voting, Congressman Adriano Espaillat, Sheena Wright from the United Way, Lori Cumbo, the New York City Council Majority Leader, Jason Laidley, Chief of Staff to State Senator Jamal Bailey, Michael Ryan of the New York City Board of Elections. We're going to have to be putting the pressure on him this year again, I'm sure, with the RCV. And then for more people on this list, not just new to the list, but also new to their job. So Dave Chokshi, the New York City Health Commissioner, Douglas Durst, the new REBNY chair, Jacques Jiha, the new New York City Budget Director, Richard Morocco of the Hotel Motel Trades Council, Jamal Bailey, new Bronx Democratic Party chairman, Donovan Richards, the new Queensborough president, newly elected Congressman Jamal Bowman, newly elected Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, newly elected Congressman Ritchie Torres. Again, I just keep mentioning him, he's a star. And the co-executive directors of the New York Immigration Coalition, Murad Awawada and Rovika Rajkishun. So congratulations to all of those new additions to our list, the new jobs. There really is a lot of changeover every year with the New York City Power 100. Now, one of those names I mentioned, very important, Congresswoman Yvette Clark. Before I throw to her, I've got to say, I was lucky enough to spend Martin Luther King Jr. Day with her last year, 2020, back when it was a normal MLK Day. I followed her around to, I think, 6 events. She threw in another one before she met me and 2 afterwards. Just, you know, I mean, working very hard in the district. I'd never been to so many church services in one day. I think we hit like at least 3 different denominations. It was incredible. So with that, I want to throw over to Congresswoman Yvette Clark of Brooklyn's 9th District.
First of all, let me thank you, Jeff, for hosting this evening and say good evening to everyone. I'd like to thank City and State for organizing tonight's event and for inviting me to speak to you all. I'd also like to thank my fellow speakers this evening, as well as designees of the Power 100 for their tireless dedication to our beloved city and state. You are all truly exceptional people, and I'm excited to see the progress you will make to continue to strengthen and undergird our great city, the great city of New York. As has been stated, I'm Congresswoman Yvette Clark, and I proudly represent New York's 9th Congressional District. I was born and raised in Brooklyn in this very district, and I proudly represent this area where my family and I have lived for more than 5 decades now. I've served on the New York City Council, as did my mother, the Honorable Dr. Una Clark. New York is home, and I could not imagine being anywhere else. Unfortunately, we New Yorkers have faced so much this year. We have survived unprecedented tragedy and trauma when our city became the epicenter of a global pandemic. We have survived uncertainty and distress, unemployment, and the degradation of our economy. And despite this global pandemic, our collective resilience and determination continue to inspire me, and I am so honored to represent such courageous and such determined people. As the daughter of Jamaican immigrants, I understand the need for comprehensive immigration reform. This is a major thread for a city like ours, and as the pandemic has laid bare to everyone the inequities that exist in our civil society, this segment of our population has, for the most part, suffered in silence. and it is time that we break that silence. Our immigration system is irreparably broken, and it has grinded the lives of those who have come to add their talent, their expertise and ability to the building of our dear city, our state, and indeed our nation. As a member of the House Homeland Security Committee, I have seen the glaring inequities and civil rights violations that have been laid bare as a result of this pandemic, and as the 20th century immigration system that we currently are utilizing has grinded up the lives and livelihoods of individuals who live amongst us, who are part of our extended family. And I will not relent until our immigration system is brought into the 21st century, reflective of a modern and equitable approach to our humanity. So that's why in the 117th Congress, I am co-leading the U.S. Citizenship Act, an immigration overhaul with the Biden-Harris administration and 5 other members of Congress who have championed immigration reform, amply named the closers, to prioritize a path to citizenship for the millions of immigrants in this country, treats our undocumented population humanely, reconnects separated families, and works to mitigate the many of the causes of migration to begin with. I'm also co-leading the effort with the Congressional Progressive Caucus to introduce the Roadmap to Freedom Resolution, promoting citizenship, protecting and strengthening a fair process centered on family unity, promoting and preserving diversity, and establishing a just and humane immigration system. Reversing the policies of the past 4 years is not enough. We must reimagine the immigration system of our nation in a manner that is humane, just, and fair. The time has come for the values of our nation to be reflected in our immigration policy. The time has come for those who have come to our shores seeking the American dream to live it and to live it to its fullest. I am so proud. I am also proudly chairing the Committee on Homeland Security, Cybersecurity, Infrastructure Protection, and Innovation Subcommittee. Cybersecurity's salient issue encompasses everything that pertains to protecting our nation's sensitive data, intellectual property, data, and government and industry information systems from theft, tampering, and damage. Fundamentally, our society is more technologically reliant. The very quick adoption of virtual life, as we are doing here today, makes it more important than ever before. And the spread of false, deceptive, and misleading statements, information, acts, or practices are amplified by the use of technology, social media, and it threatens the integrity of our democratic institutions and the rule of law, which form the foundation of our democracy. So I look forward to working with my colleagues and the Biden-Harris administration to advance and fortify our nation's cybersecurity, infrastructure protection, and innovation posture. Finally, like so many Americans, I watched in horror last year as wildfire storms ravaged our nation. Climate change is real and it is a crisis. Our duty in Congress is to take bold action to tackle climate warming emissions and protect the American public from future climate impacts. And that is why my legislation with Senator Markey, the FEMA Climate Change Preparedness Act, will ensure that the Federal Emergency Management Agency, known as FEMA, is fully equipped to help our communities prepare for and recover from natural disaster implications of climate change. We must take significant action to protect Americans from climate change's devastating impacts by reintroducing legislation to place the climate crisis at the Federal Emergency Management Agency Center. I am so proud to be with you all tonight. I thank you for the recognition that I've received. City and State remains a premier media organization dedicated to covering New York's local and state politics and policies. And I'm proud to be included on such a dynamic cohort. This past year has been challenging, but I am proud of the resiliency of our community, and I look forward to us moving into a post-COVID-19 civil society that is reflective of everyone's contributions to the building of and strengthening of our communities. From COVID relief to vaccinations, our city and state has been front and center. We now have the opportunity for substantive change with support from both a new administration in the White House and a majority in the Senate. So thank you all once again. Stay strong, stay healthy, stay safe, wear your masks, and stay blessed. And don't forget, did I say wear your mask? Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Congresswoman Clarke. Powerful words from a power player. Let me know when you're ready to announce who you're endorsing for city council, mayor, all that. I'm eager to hear. That is the Central Brooklyn vote, and that is essential. So really appreciate the words. Speaking of mayor, by the way, I've got to keep on running down this list of our New York City Power 100. We did a massive piece of the top 10 leading mayoral candidates on the Power 100 list. So I'm talking Eric Adams, Scott Stringer, Maya Wiley, Ray McGuire, Sean Donovan, Catherine Garcia, Diane Morales, Lori Sutton, Carlos Menchaca, and Andrew Yang. So somebody in the Q&A asking why Andrew Yang is not on the list. He is on the list, combined with all the other mayoral candidates. It's going to be very interesting to follow these next 4 months and 2 weeks, I believe. So be ready. And while I'm at it, I also want to shout out all of the honorees on the New York City Power 100 who have been on the list for 5 years in a row. That is Scott Stringer, Eric Adams, Michael Mulgrew from the UFT, George Gresham from 1199, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Jumaane Williams, who we heard from before, Jerry Nadler, the congressman, Emma Wolf, now I think she's a deputy mayor now. She's, but you know, de Blasio's like top 8. Emma Wolf, Dean Foulahan, another deputy mayor, Neil Quatra from Metropolitan Public Strategies, Suri Kassirer from Kassirer, Valerie Berlin and Jonathan Rosen from Berlin Rosen, James Capolino, Congresswoman Nydia Velazquez, Errol Lewis from inside City Hall in New York 1, Queens District Attorney Melinda Katz. I'm sure she used to be on the list under a different title, but 5 years in a row. Henry Garrido from DC 37, Gary LaBarbera from the Building Trades Council, Stu Applebaum from RWDSU, Carlo Scissura from the New York Building Congress. Give me a second, Carlo. I'm going to throw to you just in a bit. Borough Presidents, Ruben Diaz Jr., Gail Brewer, and Jimmy Otto, Michael Wolas from CMW, Patrick Lynch from the New York City Police Benevolent Association, Vinny Alvarez from the Central Labor Council, James Merriman from the Charter School Center, Mara Gay from the New York Times, David Greenfield from the Met Council, and Sid Davidoff from DHC. So those are the huge list of the people that have stayed on for 5 years in a row. But one of those names may have caught your ears. I'm talking, of course, about Carlo Scissura from the New York Building Congress. Carlo is a man about town. Everybody knows that the hottest ticket in town is espresso with Carlo. Sadly had to turn digital this year instead of in real life, but I'm sure we'll grab a coffee once we can. And with that, I want to hand over to Carlo of the Building Congress.
Thank you, Jeff. Jeff, I have to tell you, your emceeing has taken such a great turn. I feel like we have all watched you grow in this position, and I am excited to see you doing such great things. I may have missed the beginning when you told us about your background, but you can reiterate what that all means later. I won't even try and guess. Anyway, seriously, thank you. To all the honorees, it's an incredible list. It's, in a year like we've had, with an economic crisis, a health crisis, and a social justice crisis. To see these 100 people who have really each played a role in helping the city, the state, and the region continue to move forward is exhilarating, it's exciting, and we're thrilled about it. And look, and I think Congresswoman Yvette Clark said something important. City and state is a critical part of New York City now. And I think you all continue to give a voice to an industry called government and politics and community that doesn't always have the best voice. So thank you to you and Tom and everybody involved. I will note this, Jumaane Williams, you are in my top 10. So I don't care about top 20 lists. I would also note, as a proud Brooklynite, Attorney General Tish James, Public Advocate Jumaane Williams, Congresswoman Yvette Clark. It's a good Brooklyn crowd here. So Jeff, you love your home borough. I know that is true. But look, let's talk for a few minutes about how do we get out of this crisis? How do we build our way out? And really the way you build your way out of this for New York and the nation is you build. You build, build, build. Today, the New York Times had a great story about, what are we looking for from the new president and what are some of the priorities? And my quote was simple. It's a new dawn in Washington, D.C. We've got an Amtrak president who understands the value of public transportation. We have a Senate majority leader from Brooklyn, New York, critical. We have a governor, Andrew Cuomo, who understands the importance of building and infrastructure. And in the last few years, when we've gotten nothing out of the federal government, Andrew Cuomo has been working hard at it, and that's wonderful. And we've got Polly Trottenberg, who is now sitting as the #2 at the U.S. Department of Transportation. I can't get better than that. It is the most wonderful time. So, you think about the New York Building Congress, right? And, when I left the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, people were like, you worked for Marty Markowitz, you were chief of staff, you ran the chamber. What are you doing at the Building Congress? And I said, you know what, folks? It's time to really get this city built and moving forward. And when we talk about what do our members do at the Building Congress, they build schools, they build hospitals, they build temporary hospitals post-COVID. They build universities and higher education campuses. They build subways. They build elevators to make subways ADA accessible. They build water infrastructure. They do broadband, and I know Camille was on earlier. They build, ferry terminals. They build new airports. All of the things that we need as a society to live, we are building. And I think when you look at how do you get massive amounts of people employed? How do you get people back to the city fast? How do you get buildings reopening? Well, folks, it's the building industry, it's the construction industry, it's the union trades that are going to put all of us back. And it's going to create hundreds of thousands of new jobs, millions of new jobs across the country. It's going to create incredible jobs in green infrastructure, in green technologies, which we all want. It's going to open up new subway stations. It's going to create new schools for our children. It is an opportunity, and I really believe, honestly, we've not had a moment like this since the FDR New Deal. We really haven't. And for New York and the New York region that has projects like the Gateway Tunnel, that is critical for bringing commuters in and out, right? Not just from New Jersey, but across the Northeast Corridor on Amtrak, where we can build a new air train to connect LaGuardia to Manhattan, where we could finally rebuild our bridges, where we can finally say the BQE, which you and I have talked about a couple of times, and people know it's one of my passions. We've got a majority leader from Brooklyn. We have a governor from Queens. Brooklyn, Queens, tear it down, open up the disgustingly relic of the Robert Moses era to the communities, include the communities and their voices into what we want to build here. Increase ferry systems. You know, we're doing Coney Island, but we're a city around water. Staten Island should have 5 ferries going to Manhattan. And Mayor de Blasio should be commended for really focusing on the ferry system. But you know, look, there are projects and projects. And for many people, it sounds like, okay, it's just they're building, it's more construction. It's more this. We need affordable housing. We need lots of new units of affordable housing. And I'm just going to leave you with this. You know, we put out a report this morning about the workforce in the construction industry. And I am excited to say that we are approaching 65% of all workers in this industry are non-white people of color. And the majority live in the boroughs outside of Manhattan. So we've got a workforce in our city, in our boroughs, that are making great wages, that are having an impact, that are helping rebuild the fabric of the city, and that are there no matter what. Post 9/11, the building industry went into the towers, right? Into the World Trade Center site. Superstorm Sandy, the building industry went in there. Post-COVID, the building industry was in there. And I think we're all in this together. We're all should be focused on getting people back to work, focused on reimagining the city we live in, and really focusing on building for our future. And I'm excited to play a part of that. And I know that many of our friends in the top 100, and I'm not going to name names because I will forget somebody and then they'll text me because you know that's what happens, Jeff. But I think everybody on this list is clearly playing a major role in rebuilding our future, and we're in this together. And you know, I'll leave you with this. They've said they've written the obituary of New York for the last 200 years. Every year, every 2 years, New York is over. The best days are done, et cetera. You know, to me, it's all you know what. I think New York hasn't even begun. I think it's time for New York to show the world who we are. And together, we really will do that. So Jeff, thank you, and City and State, for the honor. Congrats to my fellow honorees. And I look forward to seeing you all in person. We are celebrating 100 years to building Congress this year, and we will be together at something as the months go on. So Jeff, I turn it back to you.
I can't wait for the party.
It's gonna be a kick-ass party, Jeff. You will be there.
I love it. I love it. I see in the mayor in the comments, somebody says Carlo for mayor. Hey,
I am excited. I am excited to not be one of the candidates for mayor, but I am very excited to work with whoever wins to help really rebuild the future of the city. And most importantly, you know, I worked, and I'm sorry I'm going on, but I just got to say this. I worked for Marty Markowitz for many years, and they called him a cheerleader. And you know what? It's okay to be a cheerleader, especially now in New York. And you've got 100 cheerleaders on this list, and we're going to make sure that we have millions of cheerleaders by the end of this year. So thank you, everybody.
Well said. I definitely like to see the fun and you know, the love of New York out of my mayoral candidates. Just yesterday, there was a story about how the mayoral candidates take their bagels. I love that kind of stuff. So I hope that, you know, especially city and state readers.
It's great stuff. It's
like
great
to keep
stuff.
that attitude up. So thank you, Carlo. It's great to hear from you. Got to keep on going down the list. We have a few members of the New York City Power 100 that are under 40 years old. That's Corey Johnson, New York City Council Speaker, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I haven't heard that name before. I don't know who that is. Ritchie Torres, Congressman, Jamal Bailey, the chairman of the Bronx Democratic Party, Soshina Mecca, WFP, and Camille Joseph from Charter Communications, all of them under 40. And one of those names, Ritchie Torres, we have a message from. So I'd like to throw it to the video from Ritchie Torres.
Good evening. I'm Congressman Ritchie Torres, and I proudly represent New York 15 in the South Bronx. You know, I never thought, as a poor kid of color from the Bronx, that I would become a United States Congressman. I was born and raised in the Bronx, where I spent most of my life in poverty. I was raised by a single mother who had to raise 3 children on minimum wage, which in the 1990s was a mere $4.25 an hour. I grew up in public housing, living in conditions of mold and mildew, leaks and lead, without consistent heat and hot water in the winter. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would embark on a journey that would take me from public housing in the Bronx to the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. As a member of Congress, I am honored to serve on the Financial Services Committee, which oversees public housing, and I'm honored to serve as the Vice Chair of the Homeland Security Committee, which is a critical position in the aftermath of January 6th and during the 20th anniversary of 9/11. If you had said to me a year ago that I would become a member of Congress during an infectious disease outbreak, that I would witness an insurrection against the US Capitol during the Electoral College vote count, and that I would vote to impeach a president who had been impeached once before, and all of that would happen within the span of less than 2 weeks, I would have said that sounds dramatic enough to be a movie. The first month has been the most dramatic and disorienting month for any freshman class in the modern history of the United States Congress. But more important than the drama of the first month are the challenges that we face. We face COVID-19, the worst public health outbreak since the Spanish flu. We face the Great Recession of 2020 and 2021, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We face the SolarWinds hacking, the worst breach of cybersecurity in the history of the US government. We face unprecedented volatility in the stock market, and we face an unprecedented surge in domestic terrorism and hate crimes here at home. The challenges we face require bold governing. I am optimistic about the future of our country because we have the makings of an FDR moment, a Democratic president, a Democratic House, and yes, a Democratic Senate. We can finally make long overdue investments in the future of our country, long overdue investments in our public schools and public hospitals, in our public housing and our public transit, in our public libraries, in our public parks. We can renew America to an extent we have not seen before in decades. Finally, the siege on the US Capitol was not simply an attack on a physical structure. It was an attack on the very idea of America as a multiracial, multi-ethnic, inclusive democracy. And even though I am shaken by the siege, I remain hopeful about the future of our country. And for proof, look no further than the inauguration. Kamala Harris, the first woman, the first African American, the first Asian American in the vice presidency, being sworn in by the first Latina on the United States Supreme Court. That moment serves as a powerful reminder that the future of our country does not belong to white supremacy. The future of our country belongs to multiracial democracy.
All right, thank you to Congressman Ritchie Torres. I'm jealous of that chair. I mean, I'm just sitting in a folding chair. That thing looked very comfortable. Perks of being a member of Congress. But wow, it's been fascinating to see Ritchie grow and go to Congress. I was just following him around, him and Andrew Yang, walking around the streets of Harlem just a month ago as Andrew Yang was launching his mayoral campaign. And it was so funny. There was Ritchie Torres, this famous member of Congress now, and he was getting totally ignored as Andrew Yang. Everyone was yelling at him on the street, "Hey, Yang, Yang, Yang!" It was just such a crazy experience. So thank you to those comments from Ritchie Torres. I've got to keep on working my way down this Power 100 list. The union leaders, you've heard a lot of these names before, so I'm going to go through quickly. Michael Mulgrew, George Gresham, Kyle Bragg, Henry Garrido, Gary LaBarbera, Stuart Applebaum, Richard Morocco, Patrick Lynch, Vinny Alvarez, and the ones I haven't mentioned before, Dennis Traynor of CWA District 1 and Tony Utano of TWU Local 100. So shout out to our union leaders on the list. Also want to shout out to the lobbyists on the list: Suri Kassir, James Capolino, Michael Wolas, Emily Giske, Michael Keogh, and Juanita Scarlett of BSJ. Also some new names: Harry Janulis of Parkside, John Del Giorno and Vincent Pitta, John Sylvan of GSG, Ed Wallace of Greenberg Traurig, Anthony Constantinople and Perry Vallone, and Sid Davidoff. So that's all the lobbyists on the list. And buildings and construction, we got Stephen Ross of the related companies, James Whelan, president of Rebney, Carlo Scissura once again, Joe Strasberg of the Rent Stabilization Association, Jed Walentes of Two Trees, and Lou Coletti, big time building, honestly, I forget the name of his organization, but my gosh, he's everywhere in construction. And what else? We've got Team Cuomo on the list. I'm just working my way down. Team Cuomo here on the Power 100, Pat Foy and Sarah Feinberg of the MTA, Rick Cotton of the Port Authority, and Team de Blasio switching over. How did we get those two mixed up? They are different worlds. Dermot Shea of the NYPD, Police Commissioner, Vicky Bean, Deputy Mayor for Housing, Melanie Hartzog, Deputy Mayor of Health and Human Services for de Blasio, Charlene McCray, of course, Flo Nice, the First Lady of New York City, Michael Generis. And then we just have some leftovers who didn't fit anywhere else. But last but very much not least, State Senate Deputy Majority Leader Michael Generis from Queens, Rafael Salamanca, the chair of the City Council Land Use Committee, running for City Council again, Felix Matos Rodriguez, the chairman of the CUNY Board of Trustees, Jason Goldman, chief of staff to the New York City Council, Stephen Rubenstein of Rubenstein PR, but then also, of course, of the Association for Better New York. And this one deserves last but not least, John and Andrea Katzimatidis of Red Apple Group, chair of the Manhattan Republican Party, potential mayoral candidate. We'll see where they go. And little correction there, I see Lou Coletti of the Building Trades Employers Association. There you go. So Lou, great guy, couldn't leave him out. That is the list of the New York City Power 100. Thank you all for listening to me as I read through 100 names, some of them multiple times. City and State has some other events coming up where we will probably name fewer names, such as tomorrow at 2 p.m. we have the second installment of our ranked choice voting series. This one focused on the Bronx. We're gonna have some mayoral candidate interviews. I think Ray McGuire is gonna be in there. It's free. You can learn about RCV and hear from some mayoral candidates. Highly recommend that. Check that out, cityandstateny.com in the events page. And of course, the Diversity Summit. That is next Thursday, February 18th. And it's going to be a great event. Registration is free. You can find it in the chat of Zoom. And sure, it's on our Facebook page too. So Diversity Summit coming up. Thank you so much for your patience. I am Jeff Colton, senior reporter at City and State. And I'm so proud every year of our New York City Power 100. It's a really great, it's just a great annual document that we put together that really tells you who has the political power in New York City. So thank you all for tuning in, for listening. Check out the magazine and hope to see you at future events. Thanks for joining.